Another two-time champ is Heritage Hall. They move up from Class 3A to 4A this year. There are obvious challenges with that, and joining us now is their head coach, Brett Bogert, here on the OK Preps Roundup, powered by Excel Therapy. Coach, how are you doing this morning?
Doing well, Michael. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, anytime. And look, football season right around the corner. It's time to talk about some 4A football and Heritage Hall moving up from 3A. When you take a look at this season, this schedule that's now in front of you, you don't have to worry about some of the 3A powers that be. You left them in the rear view, but now you got to worry about some bigger boys like the Wagner Bulldogs, Oologah Mustangs, Tuttle, Ada, some traditional powerhouses in high school football. What are some of the biggest challenges for Heritage Hall as you enter year one in Class 4A?
Well, actually, we're not quite done worrying about 3A teams as we open with John Marshall, who's one of the top teams in 3A.
Yeah, that's brutal.
But then we got Medill as well. But then we move up to some 4A competition. It's something that we're excited about. We know it's going to be tougher, bigger teams, more physical teams, week in and week out. We know we're going to have a tough contest, but I think our boys are excited about it and really just excited for the challenge of moving up.
Now let's talk about these guys specifically. You got to replace Tevin McDaniel, Terrell Love, Luther Harris. And I know I talked with you about this in the spring. You can't really necessarily replace those guys because they've meant so much to this program over the last couple of years. But one guy, and I talked about this in our last segment as far as a player to watch, is your quarterback, Blake Adams. I think because of the success of the other guys last year, Blake kind of went undervalued as far as, the media not really paying too much attention to what he was able to accomplish. I talked about it, over 30 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. When I had a big question mark with Heritage Hall about the quarterback position, I'm like, who's going to replace Connor McGinnis? This guy is one of the, best quarterbacks this school has ever seen. They got to find someone to replace him. Blake steps in, has a phenomenal year. What has he done this offseason to improve his game as he heads into 2016?
Yeah, it was huge having Blake last year. He stepped in, nicely and filled in where Connor had left. And it was a little easier for him last year because he had Tevin and Tank and those guys in the backfield to help relieve the pressure. But
Yeah.
Now he's one of our go-to guys, and he's done a great job turning into a leader over the summer and in our strength and conditioning and our 7-on-7s and team camps and whatnot. And we just expect him to grow from where he went last year. We'll probably count on him to run the ball a little bit more with those guys gone. And we'll definitely be putting the ball in the air a little bit more. And as he had last year, 34 touchdowns, only 4 picks. That's taking care of the ball, so we know we can trust him when we put it in the air. But really, we're looking for him to be a leader. He starts on both sides of the ball. He's been a starter since a freshman on defense, so we really count on him to be a leader on both sides of the ball.
Another guy who plays both sides is Dawson Evans, one of the better athletes in Oklahoma's 2017 class. I know I talked with you during the spring, and you mentioned Dawson gonna see some time in the backfield as well this year. You're going to try to get creative with how you use Evans this fall.
Absolutely. Last year he's out at receiver mainly just because we have Tevin and Tank.
Right.
He's running back at heart. And he's stepped in there and he's done a great job doing what we've asked him to do. He had a great summer catching the ball in 7-on-7s. He's looked great all week. I mean, I know we've only been in pads one day so far, but he looked great when we put the pads on yesterday. Defensively, we know he's going to be solid. He gets 100 tackles a year. But he's really, really stepping up his game on offense, and we expect him to do big things for sure.
What can you say about the jump up to 4A? Because I talked about it in our last segment. Cassia Hall is kind of a similar program where they had been dominant at the 2A, 3A level. Then they moved up to 4A, and while they've made consistent playoff trips, they haven't, been able to get over that edge as far as first-round quarterfinal. They haven't made a run to the semifinals yet or championship game. What has to happen for Heritage Hall, to try to avoid that Cassia road where they moved up to 4A and possibly taken a step back as far as being a true state champion contender?
We have a lot of respect for Cassia. We've played them in state championships and stuff like that, and still think they've done a good job moving up to 4A.
Yeah.
Making the playoffs is still a pretty big deal, and but we think we have the biggest difference is the fewer numbers for sure, which we know is going to happen at this school. We've always had kind of smaller numbers football-wise. So really, I mean, we just think if we can stay healthy and get some consistent play and a little bit of depth from our offensive and defensive lines, that we're going to have a really good chance to compete.
Coach, as always, I enjoy our conversations. I know you guys are out at the lake today, so enjoy the weekend, and I know it's back to work on Monday. I appreciate your time this morning and looking forward to watching Heritage Hall football on the OK Preps Network this fall.
Absolutely, Michael. Thanks for having me on. Should be a fun season.
Absolutely. That's Heritage Hall head coach Brett Bogert joining us here on the OK Preps Roundup powered by Excel Therapy. The Chargers will be live every single week. You can watch those games live on the OK Preps Network.